This week we're at Columbia University on location, and one of the main reasons why I decided I was going to film here and do the lesson is because it's based upon a passage that I saw from a film called Capitalist Conspiracy. And what it is was an individual by the name of G. Edward Griffin brought out some information, and this video was made back in 1969, and the information was based upon a student seizure that happened here at Columbia University in 1968. And what happened was supposedly some students seized certain members, certain officials at the school, had them arrested as it were, had them detained, and the police pretty much were told not to intervene. The police were told not to mess with the situation. In other words, the elites of society back then, they wanted that situation to escalate. And indeed it did escalate to the point where you had student riots, right? You had student demonstrations right here back in 1968, in the month of April. And this is what we're seeing now, because you know our thing is to teach about prophecy. Now you're seeing something called the Black Lives Matter movement. You're seeing that? Well, there's no difference from the so-called Black Lives Matter movement and what happened here at Columbia University back in April 1968. And you'll see the footage, you'll see the clip. And basically, it goes back to something that the elites are bringing called pressure from above and pressure from below.
But what is the best way to sell big government and then world government to a people like ours, historically devoted to an independent republic of limited powers? The answer is simple. In revolutionary literature, the tactic is known as pressure from above and below. It's the strategy that Colonel House laid down in his book, Philip Drew, Administrator. Deliberately create problems, and then offer only those solutions that result in the expansion of government. Create conditions so frightful at home and abroad that the abandonment of personal liberties and national sovereignty will appear as a reasonable price for a return to domestic tranquility and world peace. If those who seek world dominion can stimulate leftist mobs into violent confrontation with local law enforcement, and also provide exhaustive news coverage so that the entire nation can see and tremble, then the peaceful and freedom-loving majority can be programmed to accept a vast expansion of government powers and even a national police force, offered supposedly to end the violence. This is the meaning of pressure from above and below. To put over police-state measures at home, they need chaos, crime, and anarchy in the streets. To sell the idea of world government, they need the constant threat of nuclear war. Or, as they say in revolutionary circles, the real action is in the reaction. In 1968, Random House Incorporated published this book by James Coonan, The Strawberry Statement, Notes of a College Revolutionary. Coonan carries the usual New Left credentials and is a classic example of the extent to which a highly intelligent mind can be programmed by the establishment into thinking that it is acting against the establishment. Coonan was one of the leading participants in the first student seizure of an American university, which occurred at Columbia in April of 1968. Initially, the movement was not large and easily could have been stopped by a simple police action. But as usual, the anti-establishment forces received their greatest help from the establishment itself. For several days, police were told not to interfere. Meanwhile, university officials groveled in the face of outrageous propaganda charges, and the media made national heroes of the rebelling students. MGM even made a movie out of Coonan's book. On page 130, Coonan wrote, "In the evening I went up to the U to check out a strategy meeting. A kid was giving a report on the SDS convention. He said that at the convention men from business international roundtables The meeting, sponsored by Business International for their client groups and heads of government, tried to buy up a few radicals. They offered to finance our demonstrations in Chicago. We were also offered ESSO, or Rockefeller money. They want us to make a lot of radical commotion so they can look more in the center as they move to the left. Jerry Kirk, while a student at the University of Chicago, was active in the SDS, the Du Bois Club, the Black Panthers, and the Communist Party. In 1969, Mr. Kirk broke from the party, and the following year testified before the House and Senate Internal Security Committees. Here is what Mr. Kirk has told us. Young people have no conception of the conspiracy's strategy of pressure from above and pressure from below. They have no idea that they're playing into the hands of the establishment they claim to hate. The radicals think they're fighting the forces of the super-rich, like Rockefeller and Ford, and don't realize that it is precisely such forces which are behind their own revolution, financing it and using it for their own purposes. More and more young radicals are beginning to wake up to the fact that their entire lives have been carefully programmed by the very people who are their hate symbols. They're beginning to realize that their so-called anti-establishment outlook actually is the calculated product of the establishment press, the establishment communications media, the establishment entertainment industry, the establishment schools. Rich men's corporations publish and popularize revolutionary books and songs. Through advertising, rich men's businesses subsidize revolutionary magazines. Rich men's tax-exempt foundations pour millions of dollars into left-wing organizations. The federal establishment in Washington, through agencies like the OEO, provide weekly paychecks to thousands of hardcore revolutionaries. And so we return again to the basic question, why? Why does the establishment publicly condemn but privately support the anti-establishment movement? Former communist Jerry Kirk answers, the idea is to create a situation where the people are so frightened of the violence all around them that they will throw their hands up in the air and demand, federal government, do something. And the only choice open will be martial law. The communists, black militants, and revolutionaries will never succeed in overthrowing the government of the United States. But unless they are stopped, they will scare the American people into accepting socialism from Washington and statist rule by the insiders of the establishment. This is what it is really all about.
Now this so-called, Black Lives Matter movement is pressure from below. And the same thing that happened back here in Columbia University, April 1968, was pressure from below. And the fact that the police was told not to intervene shows that it was set up by the wicked elite of that society back then, or this society back then, which you know as the Illuminati, which the top members of the Illuminati are the international banking families. In this case, the Rothschild family, the Rockefeller family. And basically, why this is all being done with the student movements, the different student movements, like Black Lives Matter, is to create chaos and mayhem to justify the elites bringing in some kind of order. See, when people get fed up of seeing that chaos and mayhem, seeing what they call madness, of seeing all of that stuff, they're going to get tired and they're going to throw their hands up and demand a solution. And that solution is coming from the government, and it's going to be martial law. And that's where you tribes come in. That's where you come in, because this is where the government is going to come and seize you, going to come and take you. And we got the script. That's right. If you want to comment on it.
Yeah, that's dealing with Jacob's trouble, because that's what the society is geared for. Now, if you look at all the situations going on around the world, there's uproars going on all over the world. There's a protest going on in Turkey, or different places, Syria, Afghanistan. You got protests breaking out in Paris, France, all over the world, because this is the time that we're living in. Because they don't want to just bring a new world order in America; they want to bring a new world order all over the world.
That's right, a new world order all over the world, and that new world order doesn't include you tribes. When I say you tribes, I'm talking about you so-called Negroes all the way down to you so-called Mexicans. And that's why the only alternative you have is to come back to this truth, come back to this knowledge of which we're teaching. And thus by coming back to this knowledge, you're coming back to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, which you know in the world as God through Jesus Christ, right? Which his name is Yahweh, that's the Father's name, and his son's name is Yahweh Shai. That's the only begotten son's name, his true name. So like I said, we're here on location at Columbia University. Now we've done videos like this before. As a matter of fact, not too long ago, we did a video at Columbia University with Apostle Elder Tahar, and we went into some of the images there. We're pretty much going to do something like that in this video, and at the same time we're going to bring out information of what we find. So we're going to take that walk, and we'll see you brothers in a few.
Any woman, oh, you know this guy ain't right. Look at